Like I've got a newborn, like I'm really bored. I'm trying not to just like drink and watch TV. So I started sewing and I've always been a huge fan of social media. So naturally, as a mom, I started taking photos of my son Paxton wearing the clothes I was sewing. And really, it was kind of crazy. I had some friends from college reach out that were like, "Hey, do you think you can make me something like out of a baby blanket?" And I just started to have interest. And with that, my husband was like, "Maddie, like you are a super passionate person. You're pouring into these other business owners, like start your own business." And he really kind of pushed me down the path of starting Little Rad Things.
Welcome to the Confident Mompreneur podcast, where you can find solid advice along with warm guidance on motherhood, business, relationships, health, wellness, and everything you need to help add to your confidence and zest for life. And with interesting guests from all around the world, you'll hear real and relatable stories with impact and nuggets of wisdom to help you or the mompreneur meet the challenges of life with clarity and success. Now let's welcome your mompreneur host, Kyrie Blaney.
Well, welcome on today, Maddie. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to have this opportunity and just share a little bit about myself and what I've learned as a mom and business owner.
I love it. I'm super excited. I was taking a look at your website a little bit earlier, and oh my gosh, such cute stuff there. I was like, it's so hard as a boy mom finding like really cute boy clothes, I feel like. So I am just like so excited to kind of hear from you about your journey and what that's been like. So do you want to start us out by introducing yourself a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Maddy Fero. I am the founder and creator of a kids apparel brand that is predominantly targeted at boys. It's called the Little Rad Things, but as we continue to grow, I definitely have visions and goals of doing more girl styles specifically. I do have some moms, ironically enough, that buy my stuff for their little girls, and it almost gives me FOMO because their little girls are so cute. I'm like, this is totally how I would dress my little girl if I was blessed with one. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I love that. That's so fun. And it definitely, I can see it being worn for both. It's more of just like kind of that, I don't know, punky style that I think you could go either way. I love it so much. How did you get started in this and what has your journey been like as you've gotten this business started?
Yeah, well, I don't want to say fell into it, but during the pandemic, I had just had my firstborn, Paxton. He was around 6 to 7 months old when COVID first happened, and we were locked up at home. And I was working a pretty stressful job. I was a franchise business coach for a fitness franchise. All of my franchise partners were closed, members were canceling their credit cards. And so I was getting calls all hours of the day like trying to strategize with these business owners how to keep their businesses afloat. And during the downtime that I did have, I was cleaning closets and doing all the things that I think we all were doing in that downtime. And I pulled out a sewing machine that had been in my closet from a Christmas like 2 to 3 years before. My mom was an avid sewer when she was a teenager. She still likes to sew occasionally. So she thought it'd be fun to get me a sewing machine one Christmas. And sure enough, like during that period of time, I was like, oh, I'll teach myself to do this, right? Like I've got a newborn, like I'm really bored. I'm trying not to just like drink and watch TV. So I started sewing and I've always been a huge fan of social media. So naturally, as a mom, I started taking photos of my son Paxton wearing the clothes I was sewing. And really, it was kind of crazy. I had some friends from college reach out that were like, "Hey, do you think you can make me something like out of a baby blanket?" And I just started to have interest. And with that, my husband was like, "Maddie, like you are a super passionate person. You're pouring into these other business owners, like start your own business." And he really kind of pushed me down the path of starting Little Rad Things.
I love that. What a great supportive husband. We love that.
Thank you.
What was it like for you to like really step into that business ownership role? Because obviously you had been in kind of a support system for, these franchise owners before, but it's definitely a big step and different when you have to kind of step into that role for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I will say, working for a franchise, I saw this buttoned up model, and nothing's perfect. Even franchises aren't perfect. But basically, if you're unfamiliar with franchising, somebody buys in, like you can buy in to have the rights to be a part of a bigger brand. And they give you playbooks and coaches and people to help guide you to maximize your potential profits versus starting from scratch like we did, I didn't know a single thing. I was like, okay, how do I get an LLC? Google, sign up. And then once I got my LLC, I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this now. So like, how do I get designs? How do I get apparel? And it was really terrifying in the beginning, and I would be lying if it's still not terrifying now. It's just the stakes are higher the bigger you get. You go from spending a couple $100s in the beginning on things to like, wow, I just spent, a couple $1,000s today. So it's scary, but it's been absolutely amazing,
Mm,
undoubtedly so.
I love that. That is so funny. You're like, I got the buttoned up version of what business is. Because it's true. You get like already have these set systems and set processes and set like menus if it's like a restaurant franchise or whatever. So everything's kind of laid out for you versus your own business where you're like, okay, but like what's actually the next step? I have no idea.
Yeah, no, totally. And, I think there's nothing wrong with that variation of joining a franchise, especially if you're super passionate about what the franchise stands for. Looking back, I have moments where I'm like, I'd be an awesome franchise partner to a franchise. Like, they could give me the playbook, I'd take it and run with it.
Mhm.
But in some regard, starting your own thing's really fun because there are no rules. Franchises have a lot of rules of what you can and cannot do. And, as a business coach back in the day, I would unfortunately have to enforce some of those rules with my franchise partners. So there's positives and negatives to both sides for sure.
Yeah, definitely. How did you like go about like, okay, I have this idea. I've obviously got like, a pretty good idea of like what I want to do and how I want to do it, and I can do that part. But like, how do I actually go about setting up the business itself? And what was that learning process like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy learning process. It still is to this day. I think the biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone is try to find mentors as quick as possible. For me, I did a combination of that and just stubbornness of like, I'm going to Google search to the end of the internet while my kids are little. And so when we launched Little Rad Things, I was pregnant with our second son. And I mean, looking back at that period of time, it was such chaos. And I'm
You're
pretty
like, how
sure,
did I even do that?
yeah. And, looking back too, there were moments where I mentally went through some things like, my doctor didn't come out and say I had postpartum depression, but looking back, I'm like, I probably did. Because my goal initially was to kind of just start Little Rad Things as a side business. And like I had already accepted a new job to roll into postpartum. And it's the first time in my life I've ever just quit a job. Like I was like, I can't do this and start a business and have a newborn and so I'm not saying that to scare anybody. It's just I literally just figured things out all the time. And that I think that's what's really cool about business though, that's really encouraging is like if you're just willing to figure things out and take it one day at a time and not stop, you're gonna have progress because you're just like it's just like magnetiles. We'll use that as an example. Putting the magnetiles together, you're eventually gonna build something, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I figured things out in the beginning was just a lot of Google research. And then I was really fortunate. My husband and I, through my background as a business coach, I listened to a ton of podcasts with business owners just to get like ideas for my franchise partners. And so at the time, I was listening pretty heavily to the Lions Not Sheep podcast with the founder, Sean Whalen. And it just turned out that his marketing director was starting a coaching program for the apparel space. And so I was able to jump into that, learn some things there, build some relationships, and that really helped. But I think you just have to be willing to learn. Like, you don't know everything. You just got to Google and suck it up and try to find people that are willing to help you because not everyone is, and that's kind of sad as well. So,
Yeah, it is true. But I feel like we always do so much better when we are able to find those people to kind of like be our support system and walk us through some of this, which is why we create spaces like this, right? Where we can share these stories and like be like, yeah, this really sucked, but here are a few of the things that made this a little bit easier for me along the way.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think I have seen this over the interviews that I've done, almost 150 interviews. The best businesses always start out in those like really rough times and hard stories that were like, I didn't originally necessarily want to go into this. It wasn't my plan, but things happened in a way where it kind of forced me into this. And then it ended up being one of the best things that could possibly happen. Because I think, especially as women and moms, when we're in those positions, like, we do whatever it takes to make it work. And it creates some of our best, I think, ideas when we're like, I can see that I'm struggling through this and maybe other people are too.
Yeah, no, totally. I think as women, what is so incredible about us is we are just amazing multitaskers. Like, and in some regard, I could say that's bad because in my own business, it's like very hard for me to give up responsibilities. And I'm at a place where I have to do that right now. But I just think we're so good at pivoting and just figuring things out. It's like having a baby, literally. It's extremely hard. And then once the baby's here, you're like, what do I do with this thing? And you just figure it out every single day. You're like, well, I'm just gonna figure it out today. And it's very similar. Business ownership is very similar.
Yeah, it really is. Well, and I appreciate that you say like you're in those stages now where you're kind of having to release some of that control. What has like the growth trajectory of your business look like? And I know especially in like the clothing industry, it can be really hard to scale up your business without making some major changes in the systems and processes in which you have built the business on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been, I feel like the common theme I'm saying is challenging, but one of the things I think about apparel that most people who get into apparel, unless they have experience with it previously, don't realize is exactly what you said. Scaling in apparel is so hard. You need more and more capital to put into the business because you need more and more inventory to be able to meet the demand of your customer base. And a lot of times when you're manufacturing, manufacturers, unless they want to give you really good terms, you're out that capital pretty far in advance before you have the physical product to sell. So for us, probably one of the most challenging things has been being able to keep stuff in stock while we're selling and growing so fast. So, in our first year, we did around $50,000 for the entire calendar year. I was really kind of like learning how to run some advertising at that point, learning how to make more designs. And we were going through a transition of screen printing to full production manufacturing. So, if someone listening isn't familiar with that, basically, when we started our business, we did a run of t shirts with a local screen printer. So, they sourced blank pre-made tees that anyone could buy with a wholesale license, and then they would screen print our designs on them, like our custom art. And as we started to see churn and grow, I really started getting interested in, okay, how can we completely make the t-shirt ourselves? How can we make, a pattern for a hoodie that's different than anything that's out there? Like really putting some of my sewing knowledge into the brand. And that's where things started to get really expensive because manufacturing, it
Mm.
just is so expensive, especially when you can't really do it in the United States and then you have to add shipping and everything to it. Um, so yeah, it was crazy. We went from 50K to 10xing that in our second year of business. And then in our third year, we're hitting our third year, or we just hit it on November 3rd.
Yeah.
We've again like over doubled. So it's been a really wild ride, but probably the hardest part of that for us is just keeping things in stock and being able to continuously expand because the bigger we get, the more expenses there are to run the business
Mm-hmm.
because we're, fulfilling 50 plus orders a day. So obviously you need somebody to do that, but you need everything else to continue to go and grow. So like I have an email marketing specialist that helps us now. I have a Facebook advertiser that helps us now. But it's so crazy. The whole process, it's just like people hear numbers and they're like, oh my gosh, you're killing it. And I'm like, not really. I mean, I am. I definitely appreciate it. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, it's not like crazy money, you know?
Well, and as you get more money, you also have to give more money to continue doing the process and hire on help and do all of the things that it takes to grow at that kind of rate.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, like I said, I didn't have a background in this before, and I wasn't familiar with different ways that you can fund things. And that's where mentors have been really helpful. I'll actually tell you a funny story, and this is a little embarrassing, but I say it's going to be like my moment someday when I really make it and can speak in front of a ton of entrepreneurs and like laugh about this moment. And I laugh about it a little now, but we were financing a lot of our inventory just on like business credit cards because I didn't know that there were other forms of credit financing that you could get. And we took a beach vacation this past summer and I had just placed like the biggest order I have ever placed. Like it was substantial, but it was on a no limit card. So I was like, oh, this is fine. Like it's fine. Like we'll get the inventory, pay it off, fine. Middle of our beach vacation, I start getting these alerts on my phone while we're on the beach that's like, your transaction's been declined for like different advertising stuff that we have set up. I'm like, what is going on? And I call the credit card company and they're like, we've shut off your card because of the amount of money that you have placed on this, and you need to pay off over 50% now, or we're not unlocking your card. And I literally sat on our balcony the whole time our kids napped and hysterically cried.
Oh,
And my husband was like, it's fine. And it was fine. We like figured it out, as a small business owner, you pivot. But like, I look back at that and it was the absolute worst feeling in the world. So for anyone listening, just know things happen to everyone in business and you just keep moving, keep figuring it out. It happens and it's a part of your story
yeah.
and you'll get through it.
Yeah. No, that's so funny and so true. I feel like sometimes those like really hard, not great moments are like necessary for us to be like, okay, well, I learned that lesson, and now I know that I need to look into other options for this, or I need to like figure out a system to make these payments quicker, or whatever it is. So it kind of forces us into those positions. And I'm sure like you've seen that a lot, especially because you've gone through such a heavy growth period and really such a short amount of time, like starting with just making things by yourself on your sewing machine at home to now the level where you're at, where you have manufacturers that you work with and you're creating your own designs and doing all of this stuff. Like, how did you know when it was time to kind of pivot and grow in each area?
Yeah. So one of the first signs for us, always use the us term because like my
I love it.
husband is involved, but he's involved. Like he has to be involved at this point. I think
It's
it
a
makes me
family
feel
business.
better
Yeah.
to say us, right? Like
Yeah.
for some reason saying I. But early on when we were actually still just screen printing blanks, like through social media, a buyer for the brand Altered State reached out
Mm.
and was like, I absolutely love your designs and what you're doing here. Like, can we test your products in our stores? And this was in our first year of business. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, I've made it. We did that. And our products did well, but our quality wasn't great. So the buyer was like, yeah, this is good. We're going to stop for now or pause, but keep sending us stuff. So, like, that for me was a initial set that was like, okay, like we've got to get out of screen printing. Like the quality is not as nice as if we did a manufacturer where like our custom tags in it and everything's very, upscale and sewn in. So that was one of the first major pivots for us. And then not long later, it was about 6 months later, There was actually a manufacturer that was trying to open an extension of her production close to where I live. And one of my main goals when I started my business was to be 100% American made. So
Mm.
that was cool too, because that was like a sign to me of like, okay, I need to connect with her and see how I can get in here and learn from her and manufacture in the States. And that took a while. Honestly, it took like probably 12 to 18 months to get going because at first she was like, this is cool you're doing this, but your run rate is like, she didn't say that. But looking back, I'm like, okay, I get it from her perspective now. And that was like the next pivot for us was like, okay, we're doing a really good job here. We're making cool stuff. Now, like, how can we bring it back to the United States and make it even nicer than what we've been doing? So those have been some of the markers for us of major growth and changes within the business.
No, but that's so cool that you like took those and were able to grow from them. Because I feel like, especially for a lot of us, if we have that like moment, we're like, oh my gosh, I made it. And then they're like, well, actually, I think we're going to stop this. That would be like a sign of failure for a lot of people where they would just kind of back down from whatever they were doing instead of pushing forward and like being like, okay, actually, this just means that I need to jump up to the next level. This means that I need to up my quality. I need to up my scalability of this. So, how did you like mentally like go through that and really be able to be like, okay, I see this not as a failure, but an opportunity for growth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect. I definitely always have moments where I'm like, wow, that sucks, Hopefully that's okay to say. I
Nope.
sometimes have a little bit of a sailor mouth. That's not as bad as it could
We
be.
love swearing here. You're welcome.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I've definitely had moments where it's like, God, that sucks. But I will say what is a blessing for me is like my husband truly is a challenger. Like he is the person that pushes me to be the best version of myself. And he has to be very analytical for his career. So he's a car chief within NASCAR's top series. And so like he literally manages a team who builds a race car every week. And so he's looking at things from like a 24th of an inch, like these crazy numbers for like scale and precision. And so when we had that feedback from Altered State, like he was kind of looking at the graphics and the way they were screen printed, and he's like, they're not consistent. If you wash it this way, it could crack and fade. And so we took that and we were like, we've got to get better, right? We're not stopping. Like, that's not who we are as people. That's not what we want to show our kids. Like, we just need to take this feedback and pivot. I think that's one thing that's been really cool for us and also challenging in a lot of ways is always looking at our products and saying, okay, that was good. How can we make it even better next time? If we're going to restock it, how can we make it even nicer? What are our customers saying? And I think that's something my customer base truly loves about us. And I know they do is like we're always listening and trying to hear what they're saying. And then we own our mistakes. Like if somebody's upset about something, like I'm going to do my best to figure out how to make it right collectively and go above and beyond for them. Even if I don't think it's wrong, and I can give an example of that. I actually had somebody recently who had like a little hole in a shirt 4 months after buying it. And I was like, you know what? You've bought with us a couple times. Let's just figure this out. Like what will make you happy? Like I stand by the quality that I produce. So if it's our fault, like even if it's not our fault, like we'll just figure it out for you. And there are people that take advantage of that. But for them, like who knows what's going on in their life. That's kind of like the mentality that I try to have. But not to go on a tangent here. One thing that is really hard in the apparel space that I've had to learn, and fortunately, my new manufacturer has educated me a lot on, is like as you're starting out small, you'll get these suppliers that want to take on your business. Like specifically overseas is really bad about this.
Mm.
And they'll produce like one really good run of something for you and get you hooked and be like, this is my manufacturer. They're great. And then every order after that gets worse and worse and worse.
Mm.
Like you're never seeing the same quality as the first time you order. So if someone out there is listening and interested in apparel and starting something in apparel, if you're manufacturing, just be really mindful and cautious of the quality, because even my best manufacturer that we are now moving away from because we are pulling into the United States full time, they've even had hiccups. And like we're definitely seeing, we've been with them for almost a year and a half now, and we've seen a decline in our quality from them. So,
Well, and that's really hard, especially because you guys have put such a big emphasis on the quality and development of your products to then like give that away to somebody else and then see that decline, which I think is part of the reason why usually when we build these like heart-centered businesses, it's kind of hard for us to like let control go a little bit because we don't know if, you know, it's going to meet our standards.
yeah. And I mean, you could say that with anything, really. Like somebody who comes on to do email marketing management is not going to write the same email as you because they're not you. And they don't know how to make a graphic the same way that you do. But the thing that I'm learning and that I think everyone can take away from this is just, are they meeting a standard that's good enough? And how can you continue to empower them to do better and work with them better? And I know for me, I really look forward to hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, like instead of having a freelancer do that, like actually having somebody that comes into an office space within a warehouse and works with me one on one on those things, right? And I'm giving them a flexible and cool career opportunity and hopefully teaching them and empowering them to do really neat stuff. I think that's what's amazing about small business is that you can really provide super unique career opportunities for people. And that's something that I'm super grateful for with the fitness franchise that I worked for. Like, I wouldn't know half the things about business that I know if they would have never given me an opportunity. And I mean, I took every advantage of that fully when I worked for them. So,
No, I think that's a really great way to think about it. And, you know, I think that's what makes a really great leader in business is being able to recognize that you can empower them to be better and, you know, always learn more. And so I really appreciate that. You were talking a little bit before about, shoot, I just lost it.
mom brain.
I know. It's the worst. I'm like, I have it, and then it's gone, and I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
It'll come back to me eventually.
Okay. No worries. I totally get that. I have that all the time. I'm like squirrel, and then I'm just
Girl.
completely lost.
She plus mom brain. It just gets a little out of control sometimes. I was going to say though, it's really cool that you take the time to listen to your customers as well when you're developing all of these new products and like making these changes to them. How has that gone for you? And like, what are some of the ways that you really get feedback from your customers in order to kind of work through those revisions or to create new products?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the obvious ones for sure is reviews, right? So if we push a product out and we get reviews that are extremely positive at a quick rate, like we know we're doing something right. If we get some negative reviews, like we know we're doing something wrong or something's not good. So that's a quick way. What's cool is I'm extremely active on social. Like I have been since day one. I don't think that's anything I will ever give up. I may like let somebody help a little bit, but 99% of the time, like I plan on social always being my thing. And if you're DMing on there, you're reaching me. I love it. I think it allows me to create lasting relationships with my audience that is so special. Like I have some moms that have been with me since the start. And I mean, I know their kids' names. I've watched them get pregnant again and have a secondary kid, like, or third kid. It's been really special. What's cool is social media is such a quick wheel for feedback
Yeah.
that I have this VIP group on Facebook. If anybody wants to look it up, it's just the Little Rad Things VIP. And my customers, I encourage them to join that. The actual conversion rate on that is kind of low. I think people are slowly getting off Facebook, but for that sense anyway. But what's nice is I can go in there and do a live video, like showing my product, and they can immediately start commenting what they like or don't like. And
Mhm.
I've even started taking this to a new level of like product development and product ideas that I'm thinking about, putting them in there and giving them the opportunity to say, yes, I would buy this or no, I wouldn't. That's been really cool as well. So I would say social is like the biggest community builder, leveraging that to like get feedback, whether it be in Instagram stories, through a TikTok video, through a Facebook Live. That has been really the fastest rate of return when it comes to feedback.
No, I love that. I think that's so true. And I do feel like the reviews are obviously nice, but I, I as a person have maybe left 2 reviews for things in my entire life. And I think about how many products or things that I've bought over that time. And obviously, like, unless I really feel strongly about something, I'm not going to go and leave a review about it. So you'll either get really, really great reviews or the really, really bad reviews and none of the kind of in between. And so to be able to have that instant access to your consumers is so nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even with an email list, like I haven't done this so much per se yet. I do have a product in development that I'll probably do this with just to like give me a better sense of how many I should order, what color scheme I should do. But you can even just email your audience and like send a personalized email to your entire list or like a very segmented part of your list that's really engaged and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about making this. What do you think?" Like respond. And yes, it will flood your inbox, but what's partially nice about that for anyone that doesn't know is if you're emailing somebody and they email you back, you're basically like telling the spam compliant stuff, like
Yeah.
send away, which is really nice.
Well, and I think it's really cool too, because like you said, if you make it more personal, whether it's on social media or if it's a personalized email or something like that, instead of just some random spam type email that they're getting, people are way more willing to actually provide that feedback if they have that intimate connection with you as the person or the brand.
Yeah, correct. And I think what's cool is I try to go above and beyond truly to build that relationship. Not everyone's gonna want to be my friend or align with me after they buy my product once, but it's awesome. Like Instagram specifically, if somebody takes the time to tag my small business in a photo, whether it be like a flat lay with their product or their kid wearing the product, whatever, 9 times out of 10, it might take me a couple days, but I'll go in and I will personally message that person. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Sometimes I just like send a video back, like, because it's me, and then they can see it's me, and they're like, it's always kind of funny. They're like, "Whoa!" Like they don't expect it. I
You're a
think,
real person.
yeah, I think in modern business though, like a lot of people don't care. Like it's really sad, but like truly living in the world of Amazon. And Amazon is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like there are a lot of perks to Amazon. I'm about to be on Amazon with a couple products, but you just don't get the personal. It's not personal at all. It's just a quick transaction. In some ways, as a small business owner, it's insanely frustrating because people want to treat your small business like Amazon, and you're like, nope, I'm a real person that's here in the United States with a family. Like, it's real. But yeah, kind of
Yeah.
a random rant from me, but
No, I think it's
that's
so
tough.
true. Well, and it's good to like kind of hear this from a small business owner's perspective because I think it as consumers makes us want to actually connect with these small businesses and provide feedback and make sure that we're buying locally and those types of things because it is real people with real lives and real families that they're trying to support through these businesses instead of a giant box brand like Amazon. Although so you said that some of your products are going to Amazon. What is your like technique for selling products? Is it right now strictly through your website? Do you have other retailers that you work with now? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we kind of have a full funnel approach at this point. So we have our D2C, which is through Shopify, and then I'm working on launching our first Amazon products. I actually have to send those in tonight. That's on my to-do list after my kids go to sleep. So those will both be our, direct to consumer methods. And then we do have retailers. We're in close to 200 now across the
Oh,
country. They are all small boutiques. So, like, we're not in any major retailer yet. That's a goal of mine, although I have mixed feelings because I have heard and listened to enough podcasts from people who say, like, your goal's like, I want to be in Nordstrom because they'll order so much. But then they also control a lot of what you produce, which I don't know if I love that personally. But yeah, we're in a bunch of small boutiques, and that's incredible as well because now not only are they helping promote my small business in their markets and in their stores, but like I'm getting the opportunity to help them grow and succeed.
yeah.
And that's again where a lot of the pressure on just like perfect quality garments for us is so high. Like we want our retailers to be able to get our product, put it in their store, somebody feel it and be like, my gosh, I have to have this. I've never seen anything like this before. So that's what's neat about that full funnel approach is like we have the opportunity to sell directly, but I personally like and am really focused on 2025 being in more and more of those small boutiques because then not only am I impacting families who are buying our stuff, but I'm impacting the families that own the boutiques, which is really cool.
No, I love that. And I do think, like you said, it's kind of a catch 22 on having the opportunity to be in those bigger spaces, but also seeing the impact that you can have in those smaller spaces while still remaining, you know, committed to your brand and some of the things that really made you what you are now.
Absolutely. Because for us and for me personally, like I've definitely taken on the designer hat. That's what I love and enjoy. I enjoy the social media. I enjoy designing and like being creative. So to ever have somebody tell me I can't do some crazy off the wall design would be really hard for me. Because I just love coming up with concepts that are loud. Like my style is, if you can't tell, I'm extremely into like the vintage 70s and 60s and 80s. I always feel like I was born in the wrong decade. Like I was supposed to be like a teenager in the 80s. So for me, like I love putting my sons in stuff that still has race cars and things of that nature on it, but I like to make them retro and I like to have like fun retro colors that like as you're an adult you don't wear. Like let's be honest, or as they're a teenager and they get more into like Nike and sporting brands, like they're not going to be going out in some like bright mustard yellow colored shirt, with a monster truck on it or
Yeah.
some old like 68 Camaro. So yeah, I
That-
just like to stay
That's
true to
my
me.
literal dream car right there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
I
my
do
dream.
have I have a new shirt coming out that has two of them on it.
Oh.
So that'll be coming soon.
So I need to get one for my son, is what you're telling me?
You'll probably like it. There's a monster truck
Oh,
on it too. So
oh, nice. I love that. No, your clothes and your design is so unique too, and I think that's part of what's led to, such massive growth for you over the last couple of years is like you're not just making any clothes. It's very specific, like this is the type of clothes, this is the type of vibe that I'm going for, and everything you do is so unique. And I think that's super cool. So I love that from you.
thank you. Probably the less unique thing I've done recently that's actually sold really well is like a checkerboard. Checkerboards everywhere.
Mm.
It's very retro. You think like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Spicoli wearing like the original Vans, which that really catapulted Vans, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, I was very anti doing checkerboard for like 2 years when we started because it was everywhere. And then I was like, okay, I know it sells. Like, how can I make it us? And that's where it was like, okay, let's put it into like a varsity jacket style, like out of Greece almost with like the obnoxious embroidery and like we could do patches and different things. So Yeah, I'm always trying to do things that I think my audience will like and be able to do like a neutral with, but also still keep like true to my like loud style as well.
No, I love that. And I think that's a great way to do it is like making sure that you're listening to people while still staying true to your brand and who you are. So if there's a mom out there that's listening to this and is like, I'm really interested in getting into an apparel business of some sort, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to go from here. What would be like the top tip that you would give them?
That is such a hard question. I would say start small and understand that just by starting small, you're not hurting yourself. I think for us, I maybe tried to move a little too quick and made some decisions that honestly cost us financially because I was like, as the designer, oh, this is going to sell. I'm so excited. Like, I'm just going to do 6 more products, right? And then, like, 2 out of the 6 sell. And I'm over here, like, oh no, what did I do?
Well,
Just
especially when you
understand.
have such overhead in this type of business.
Correct. So really being methodical and figuring out, what is the first product you want to launch, whether that be like you want to go the route of screen printing like we did, which is honestly how a lot of people start. And I would probably recommend that so you understand who your person is and like what they want to buy. Your margin is typically the best there too. So like if you start with a screen printed tee and it sells really well, okay, I can take this to a manufacturer now. It's going to sell through and continue to sell. I would just say start small and like know that it just takes time and it takes money. It really does. Like I think in apparel, you truly can't expect to start and just have money after a year. I think there are people out there that get lucky and find the TikTok viral hit and they sell out or something happens. Like there are those people, but that is not reality. It really isn't. And it just takes a lot of time and reinvesting and patience and dedication. So, but be passionate. If you're passionate about it, you'll succeed. Like you just have to be passionate.
Yep, and go with the twists and turns as they come. Be able to be flexible in how you're doing things and maybe what direction you're going,
Yep.
which I think can be said for any business out there.
Absolutely. As a business owner, I think one of our biggest qualities is just like pivoting. I always think of Ross from Friends yelling pivot because
Yeah.
it's so true. Like you're like, oh, well, this happened today. Time to pivot this way and figure it out, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Well, this has been such a cool conversation. Where do we find you? How do we get a hold of your clothes for us moms of little boys out there? What do you have coming up next? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to find me specifically, obviously you can find me at the Little Rad Things. I'm always the one responding on there, or you can go to my personal, which is just at Maddy Fero. Our website is littleradthings.com. Coming up, I'm really excited. So we're in that transitionary process to Made in America, and I actually got my first set of American made tees yesterday.
Exciting.
So one of them is a brand new t-shirt that I designed after I took my son to Monster Jam. I was like, we need a monster truck shirt. The ones that they sell there are hideous, in my opinion. They're just like, you're like, oh, okay, you're gonna wear that. So a monster truck shirt. And then we have a major collab with another brand that is outside of apparel, but they make a sporting product for boys that I'm very excited about. So that'll be coming in the next couple weeks. And then just continuing to come out with new styles, better and better quality, and made in America stuff, which I'm super excited about. So,
No,
yeah.
that's awesome. Well, I'm super excited for you. It'll be fun to watch you continue growing. I'm excited for it. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mompreneur Podcast. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give us a follow so we can invite you back every Wednesday. And of course, share it on all your socials. Being a confident mompreneur means uncovering your strengths and struggles so you can dive in and learn how your next steps could be your greatest.